The virtual CISO moment is brought to you by vCISO Services, a leading provider of quality and experienced virtual chief information security officers for small and mid-sized businesses. Check them out at vcisoservices.com. Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the Virtual CISO Moments Cyber Quick Strike for Monday, February 20th, 2023. From CNN, FBI says that it has contained cyber incident on Bureau's computer network. The FBI has apparently been investigating and working to contain a malicious cyber incident on part of its computer network in recent days, according to people briefed on the matter. This came to us from CNN. FBI officials believe the incident involved an FBI computer system used in investigations of images of child sexual exploitation. Two sources briefed on the matter told CNN. Quote, this is from a Bureau statement to CNN. The FBI is aware of the incident and is working to gain additional information. This is an isolated incident that has been contained. As this is an ongoing investigation, the FBI does not have further comment to provide at this time. Now, FBI officials have worked to isolate the malicious cyber activity, which two other sources said involved the FBI's New York field office, one of the Bureau's biggest and highest profile offices. The origin of the hacking event is still being investigated, according to one source. You use GoDaddy? Check this out. Not good. Web hosting giant GoDaddy says it suffered a breach where unknown actors have stolen source code and installed malware on its servers after breaching its cPanel shared hosting environment in a multi-year attack. This according to Bleeping Computer. While GoDaddy discovered the security breach following customer reports in early December of 2022 that their sites were being used to redirect to random domains, the attackers have had access to the company's network for multiple years. Based on our investigation, quote, we believe that these incidents are part of a multi-year campaign by a sophisticated threat actor group that, among other things, installed malware on our systems and obtained pieces of code related to some services within GoDaddy. This, according to the hosting firm in an SEC filing. The company says that previous breaches disclosed in November 2021 and March 2022 are also linked to this multi-year campaign. So this has been going on for some time, apparently. GoDaddy is now working with external cybersecurity forensics experts and law enforcement agencies worldwide as part of an ongoing investigation into the root cause of this breach. Next up, from the International Association of Privacy Professionals, or the IAPP, covered entities under the California Consumer Privacy Act, or the CCPA, are on the cusp of a long-awaited legal certainty regarding updated compliance efforts. The California Privacy Protection Agency Board, that's a mouthful, voted 4-0 at its latest meeting to finalize its first set of proposed California privacy rights regulations. The final rulemaking package, which consists of proposed regulations and a draft final statement of reasons from the CPPA, will soon be sent to the California Office of Administrative Law for review and approval. That would be the COAL, I guess. There's a lot of, or I guess maybe it's just OAL. There's a lot of acronyms in this article. Bearing setbacks during the California OAL, 30-day review to window or other unforeseen circumstances, the agency says in its FAQ, we know what that acronym is for, it expects that the final regulations to take effect sometime in April ahead of the CPRA enforcement beginning on July 1st. Now, the proposed final rules take on a range of regulatory topics that the CPPA considered and sought extensive feedback on last year. Topics covered included data processing agreements, consumer opt-out mechanisms, mandatory recognition of opt-out preference signals, dark patterns, and consumer request handling. Now, this rulemaking process on the first set of regulations was initially scheduled for completion, as you might recall, on January 1st of 2022, but the CPPA announced the process would take longer due to the limited staffing and resources as the new agency stood itself up. Fortune reports that the cost of cybersecurity insurance is soaring and that state-backed hackers will be harder to cover. And they say in this article that it's time for companies to take threats more seriously. It always seems like it's time to take threats more seriously because it's always been time to take threats more seriously. I will stop opining right now. States-backed attackers are on the rise. and the insurance sector is increasingly excluding them from coverage. And so, for example, we've talked about this before, come the end of March, Lloyd's will no longer cover damage from cyber attacks carried out by state or state-backed groups. In the worst cases, this reduced insurance coverage could exacerbate the trend of companies taking a passive approach towards state-backed attacks, as they feel there is now really nothing that they can do to protect themselves. But on the flip side, this increased risk and demand from companies for coverage could push the cyber insurance sector to innovate, maybe, and find ways to deal with the growing risk levels. The uncertainty of insurance could be the motivation that companies might need to take the threat of state-backed attacks more seriously, as if they need more motivation. A little opinion on my side, this is not in the article, but cyber insurance should be the last measure in a layered security defense. And sometimes it's the other way around, with an attitude that since we have cyber insurance, hey, we don't need to be worried about breach costs, right? No, that's the wrong approach. One analogy is that in a car crash scenario, there are many controls in place, obviously, to reduce negative effects from getting into a car crash. Some are preventative. You don't get into a car crash, well, then you don't have to worry about it. And some of those controls would be like administrative. Don't drive in bad weather. Have a policy not to drive in bad weather. A personal policy. Don't drive fast. Make sure your brakes are in place. That's operational. Drive defensively. Another operational would be make sure your headlights are on and working. So that's a combination of both. And that your tires are in good shape and tire pressure is good and all that. Now, of course, another one is airbags. And airbags will prevent injuries and in some cases death, but no one really considers, at least I don't think that they should. Hey, I'm going to drive recklessly, but if I get into an accident, that's okay. My airbag is going to save me. That's not the right approach. You certainly don't want to. You don't want to have the insurance of an airbag or the insurance of cyber be a reason to be reckless or not diligent with your driving or your cybersecurity program. Anyway, back to the article. The average price for a cyber insurance in the United States rose 79% in the second quarter of 2022, after more than doubling during each of the previous 2 quarters. At the same time, insurers are more carefully scrutinizing companies' cyber practices and excluding certain vulnerable technologies and attacks linked to war and conflict. So in December, Mario Greco, the CEO of Zurich, called cyber attacks uninsurable, at least in the traditional sense. Now, the author of the article proposes 3 things that need to change as insurance becomes more expensive and less reliable. First of all organizations need to understand that they are at risk of state-backed attacks. Second, companies need to start paying attention to who is attacking them. An attack or an attempted attack is a unique opportunity to learn about the enemy, including what methods and tools they use. And third, the private sector and the government need to increase cooperation. Now, next up, this is something that I can attest to, and this is according to a new study in the Workforce Institute at UKG, and I believe that this comes from Forbes.com. If you're in a career long enough, you probably will experience this as well. According to 69% of people, their managers have the greatest impact on their mental health, on par with the impact of their partner. And this is more than the impact of their doctor at 51% or therapist at 41%. This, according to a new study by the Workforce Institute, as I said, at UKG, which included 3,400 people across 10 countries. Leaders have a critical role to play in contributing to the conditions for positive mental health, their own and others. According to the article, here are some of the most impactful approaches for leaders. See what you think about this. Don't have too much work for yourself or your team, and resist the urge to take on the work for yourself. People watch how you manage your own workload, and they use your choices as a model, whether you meet them or mean them to rather or not. So stop overloading yourself. Train others, delegate, empower, ensure teamwork and coordination so that everything doesn't fall on your own shoulders. And I have to admit, I struggle with this as not only the leader of operational groups in the company, but as leader of the company. Slowly over the years, my responsibilities have increased as the company has grown, and I need to do probably a better job of changing with that. Next, Consider that people are influenced by everyone around them, but leaders have an outsized impact. And people tend to put leader behavior under a microscope, paying especially close attention to what leaders say and they do. Now, also emphasize empathy because it's the right thing to do and because it has positive impacts on innovation, engagement, and retention. I was told when in a new leadership role by another in leadership that, quote, my job was not to make friends, end quote. This is their way of trying to get me to be less empathetic and more, I don't know exactly what. I'm naturally a friendly person. I like to have that sort of interaction. And I resisted the attempt to change my leadership style, and I'm really glad I did. I don't know if I'd be where I'm at now if I had changed my leadership style. I don't know where they're at either. Additional advice includes giving people a reason to care, connecting people, providing challenges, giving people choices, and taking care of your own mental health. I would add to that last one that physical and spiritual health maintenance are as important. Now, cybercenter.org has a write up on the great CISO resignation. I'm just going to give their summary from the article. A few bullet points. Number one, industry experts predict that 2023 will see the great resignation phenomenon spread to the Chief Information Security Officer, otherwise known as the CISO, or CISO, or CISO, depending upon how you like to pronounce it. Between 32 and 44% of CISOs were either considering or open to leaving their jobs, mainly due to job stresses and the impact on work-life balance. And one stressor is the prospect of negative public press and possible increased liability triggered by recent events in the news and the courts. At the recent Davos World Economic Forum gathering, the top risk mentioned for enterprises was cybersecurity penetrations. I think that's kind of obvious, but NCC recommends that CISOs should be called into executive session with board members or state leadership without their superiors present, similar to the current practice with senior financial executives. Now, I've had a litmus test for the last many years as to whether or not a job is worth staying at. It begins with the popular question, what keeps you up at night? How you answer this is important. My answer? Nothing. If something keeps me up at night, I am sacrificing one of the most important aspects of physical, mental, and spiritual health cycle. See the previous article. If your job genuinely has you losing sleep, I would suggest taking a look at the situation overall. Consider making changes. And while we're at it, like the hoodie, can we just drop that saying, what keeps you up at night? It's nonsensical if it's just a saying. I understand what we're saying. What are your concerns? Well, words are important. So if you mean to say, what are your concerns? How about we try saying, what are your concerns? And then finally, you're all expecting a list. I don't have one today. That's not for lack of trying. I just didn't see anything over the weekend that was of worthiness to share on the podcast today. But I do have two other things that I wanted to share. And these are actually two LinkedIn posts. And the links to these are also in the show notes. The first one comes from the ISSA. If you're not familiar with that, you should be. That is the Information Systems Security Association. It is a well-known association I've been a member of for well over a decade, and I wish that I had joined a lot earlier in my career. Actually, just went to a local chapter meeting, which I really enjoy because you have the opportunity to network and to learn about new stuff. At this particular meeting, Varonis gave a very good presentation as the sponsor of the chapter meeting on data security. But that's not why I'm mentioning the ISSA, and that's not why the ISSA posted this. What the post gets into, did you catch the February featured article in the ISSA Journal? You can read a complimentary copy of how an organization deal with employees who fail phishing tests by Fahad Al-Hamadi, or become a member of the FSA, or rather ISSA there. And what I'm looking for is that I thought I had a copy of the magazine here, but I guess I do not. I wanted to actually physically show you. Anyway, this magazine, the ISSA Journal, is a very valuable resource. Now, I haven't yet read this particular article, the one that you can get for free without being a member, but it is timely about how to understand how organizations are dealing with employees who fail phishing tests. You definitely, that's a strategy. You don't want it to be punitive. You want it to be educational. And I would encourage, though, check out that article. If you go to the ISSA's website, there is in the link in the article, there is a link to that. So you can download the article, get an opportunity for yourself to see the types of articles that are within the journal, and consider becoming an ISSA member. I don't know the exact cost off the top of my head. I want to say that local and national dues are something like $125 a year, at least for here in the Nashville area. That allows not only for chapter meetings, and access to this and other resources, but also discounts on other things such as the InfoSec Nashville, which is our fall annual large conference. It's expanding this year, I believe, to have a Capture the Flag event, and also the ISSA National Conference. I don't know where it's at this year. I can't even remember what it's called, but I have been to it before. Anyway, that's number one. Number two, also from LinkedIn, are you familiar with the Southeast Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition? According to a post from Mark Brown, who is also, by the way, a board member of the Middle Tennessee chapter of the ISSA, at SECCDC 2023, we gathered the Southeast region's top 8 collegiate or colleges and universities over 2 days of cyber defense competition. As an IT or IT security pro, we need your help to judge them. See the event link below for more details. Who is competing at the regionals this year? So a list that he has. I don't know if this is complete or if this is just partial. Charleston Southern University, Clemson University, Columbus State University, East Tennessee State University, St. Petersburg College, University of Central Florida, the University of North Florida, and the University of South Alabama. Why is Middle Tennessee State not on that list? I'm going to have to check with them. I'm not happy about that. Anyway, the reason for the post is that they are looking for judges, and if interested, please check on that link and contact Mark Brown. And that's it for today. Got a couple of great episodes coming up this week on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, but I'll leave that either as a surprise, or if you want to see the prelude, if you will, as to who's going to be on, check out our IMDb link. I'll put that in the show notes as well, because on that you will be able to see, at least that'll be on the show notes, not for the live, but for the recording. You will be able to see the more than 100 episodes over the history of 5 seasons of the Virtual CISO Moment. Been going strong, been gaining steam. Very much looking forward to continuing to gain steam. And there'll be some other changes as well. And on that note, too, if you are interested in advertising on the Virtual CISO Moment, hit me up. The email address is in the description of the podcast. You can also reach me at greg@gregschaefer.info. That's it. I hope you all have a wonderful week. I know for me, I've been looking at this cup of coffee now for the past 18 minutes and 22 seconds, and I haven't had any of it yet, and I'm looking forward to having more. But until next time, stay secure.